The Polyglot Gathering is brought to you by italki. Become fluent in any language.
Well, salvete omnes.
Salvete!
Hayrete polu.
Hayrete. First of all, we are going to have this lecture in Latin. Yes, but to facilitate the few of you that might not speak Latin nowadays, it's the international language Latin, you know. But I know that still there are some people that don't speak Latin. So in order to facilitate you, we will provide a simultaneous translation into ancient Greek.
Hosan retese in tutto il logo retese taikai Hellenisti. Atikisti. Atikisti, Atikisti, ukesti Homeristi, ukesti Doristi, esti monon Hellenisti, Atikisti, entre Atikei dialektoi.
Bene, possumus incipere. First of all, who speaks Latin? No, speaks orally.
Good.
One? Only one.
So of course that was a joke, right? We're not going to do the whole presentation in Latin.
Some pieces. And what about French? I mean, can understand French?
Yeah.
How many? Okay. Spanish?
Sure.
Italian? Portuguese? Esperanto? German? Okay. So, okay, maybe no Esperanto and no Portuguese. Well, Esperanto not so. Okay.
Then I go. I had some notes, but I couldn't bring them out. I don't know why exactly, but I don't think I'm going to read them anyway. So we're going to do this in. Oh, sorry. Maybe 2 different parts. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think it's interesting to speak a dead language, especially why I think I speak 2 dead languages, and I would love to speak 3 or, well, not 3 if you count a language I'm going to talk about, but 2. And then why I would love to speak another one, and also why I don't think that any dead language is supposed to be spoken, just some very special ones. So let me start with...
Did you understand the joke, right? Yeah. Long life to dead languages. Okay.
So, yeah, let's start with an invocation. Musaon elikoniadon narkometaidin haitelikonos ekusinoros megatezateonte kaite perikrenen ioeide apos hapaloisin orkeuntai kaibo moneristene kronionos. So now the muses are among us, and we can start confidently. So let me start with a little story, which is kind of the story of my life. In 2007, Patriam Reliqui, I left Colombia, my home country, to go to France, ubi nunc habito. As I had grown up in kind of a bilingual environment, French and Spanish, and I've always dreamt of knowing Latin and Greek, which seemed to me a couple of very mysterious languages. And I always had a very, I don't know, strange idea of what that was like. I never really got to do it before I got to France. So when I arrived in Paris, I had more or less full command of 3 languages. Loquebar Hispanica lingua, Franco-Gallica lingua, aut Gallica lingua, sed melius Franco-Gallica, et utebar non pessime Germanice, Teutonica, Germanica lingua, Teutonica lingua dicimus, German, right? But at that point, my mind was I really wanted to learn both Latin and Greek, and peractis jam annis decem, not I think that in part thanks to Latin and Greek, I've come a long way. I think Latin and Greek were the 2 languages that boosted my language skills and made me really a language learner. So I owe them a lot. And So I owe them all this great experience. Now I have studied more or less 20 languages. I don't speak them, but I've studied more or less 20 languages, and I owe that to Latin and Greek. In August 2007, I got stranded in a small town called Sceaux, in south of Paris, nudus in ignota arena. And I remained happily stuck there for 3 years in a place called Prépa. I don't know if you know about that. It's a very weird school where you spend 2 or 3 or 4, sometimes 5 years, but mostly 3 years, to prepare one test, 1 week-long test that takes place 3 hours afterwards, 3 years afterwards. And you were, you study for 4 years a wide spectrum of disciplines in the humanities, and all this is to get to this place. Sorry, yeah, summary, and that summary. We're gonna just, okay, you don't see it, but it's the Templum Latinitatis. Today you can go and speak Latin once a week with us. This is the school where we practice right now Latin and Greek, spoken Latin and Greek. The alma mater, the sancta sanctorum, the aduton thesauron, secretum secretorum, the schola normali superior aut excelsa. Ergo.
Maybe just for... Sure. Yeah. We'll give the summary. So in the first part, as Robertus said, we are going to speak about why speak Italian languages today, Latin and Greek story of Robertus, a myth and many methods, and then we will see some tools to study and to speak Latin today, namely some academies, some events, and some internet sites, and some lexicons.
Right. So, paulatin, so slowly, I started noticing that those subjects I was studying were not considered as goals in themselves, and it was just a goal, oi moi talas, to go to this place. And it was a very, very specific kind of training, but I soon noticed, and it did not come as a shock, that in this system, the French students were unable to speak any language other than French, which is not very uncommon for Friends. And teachers in general were also generally bad at languages in this system. So, moreover, the task of learning Latin and Greek in 2 or 3 years and to get it to a level good enough, to excel in this tests was considered a heroic feat. Only a kind of intellectual Hercules could pull off. And well, no wonder. Studying Latin and Greek is complex. It's a long activity. You have to dedicate a lot of time to it. And you have, in this system, to spend hours with your eyes glued to the pages of a dictionary.
I would like to add something. If you have questions, interrupt us.
Yeah.
Yes?
Why didn't you mention point 1? Yes, I found a little dictionary called Oxford, which is about Manila, which has got all the words I need to speak today, and the other one is that the internet newspaper, if you read it.
So, what's the question?
Why didn't you mention that?
Because it's not over. Don't worry about it. We just started.
Maybe I don't know it. Maybe we will do it later.
Yeah, there are a lot of materials, but we're going to discuss that later on. So there was a common misunderstanding that led to thousands of misreadings in texts, and it was that Latin and Greek, because of their complex system of declensions, are closer to math than to a spoken language, and so closer to math than to its daughter or stepdaughter languages, French, Spanish, Italian, and so on, Friulian, whatever you want. So according to this Weltanschauung, Latin and Greek are scientific, rigorous languages, and learning them can turn you into a very logical and disciplined person, which I am not, definitely not. And being rigorous and logical languages, so the conclusion is that since they're rigorous and logical, they can't be spoken because they're just supposed to be a subject that you study. And this is a problem for me, for a lot of people, Latin and Greek, we could add other languages to the list, like classical Arabic, ancient Hebrew, Sanskrit, are only an intellectual game or a mathematical exercise, and I don't think that's true. I think that nothing's further from the truth, or rather that the same can be said of anything you learn with painstaking concentration, you know, slowly, methodically. And some folks I know, I'm including myself in that list, have even shown me that you can be as sloppy and illogical with Latin as you can with French or Italian and still, you know, get your point across. And then I lost my notes. They just died, vanished in my phone.
Dica-mi quando devo...
Ita, neschio, fuck. Okay, no, I'm not there yet.
Oh.
So, but do you actually think like that immigrants in ancient Rome or in Greece spend hours like us learning declensions and conjugations and pay for expensive Latin lessons and use flashcards and memory palaces? What do you think? What do you think? Yeah, what? Give me other answers. What do you think? Do you think they did that?
Of course they did.
Of course, yeah, of course they did. Yeah.
They only could speak when they were 30.
Right. So actually, yes. So for example, the Roman orator and philosopher Cicero, in whose times memory palaces were a very common tool, and they called it the Loki, not like the god, not like, you know, the Avengers or another god, the Loki, L-O-C-I, place method. He tells us that he would have loved, he used those memory palaces a lot, but he would have loved to have an oblivion palace to forget things that are distasteful and horrible. So, but all jokes aside, most people didn't do that. Most people didn't spend hours or paid for expensive lessons or use memory palaces. They just had to live the language the way it was lived. And especially for slaves and servants, it was a matter of life or death. So I'm not telling you that you have to find a situation where dead languages should be a matter of life and death for you, because that might be a very weird place to get yourself into. But you know, it's something along those lines. Right, so that brings us back to that old truth of language learning. You know, you can only really truthfully learn a language in an effective and thorough way when you find yourself in a situation where you can't do without it. Not a life or death situation, but something that you have a reason to speak that language, a real reason. You're compelled to either use it for something useful or something that's meaningful for both you and your interlocutor. So to go back to my little story, and I'm just gonna talk about the myth of dead languages just afterwards. I set myself to the task of learning Latin and Greek in 2 years, which quickly became 3 for reasons that actually related more to life and love than to the difficulty of Latin and Greek. And in a few months...
Tell us about your loves.
Oh yeah, se parliamo latino qui non posso... Rubesco Paolo non si non facciamo. Bene. So I had made a lot of progress after a year or two, but even after those 2 years, I couldn't read the texts I wanted, and I couldn't, you know, like do one of the tasks that was asked for me, which is to translate French prose into Latin prose, which was extremely difficult. So my goal was to read Virgil and Homer in Latin and Greek, but it seemed to me to be moving further from me every day, and we only just translated excerpts relentlessly and always did the same thing. And there was an aspect that was really painful to me, and that was like, have you ever heard like Latin pronounced in French? You know how they do? You know, like qui proxima, quid superior in opte geris, ubi fueris, quos convocaveris, quid concilique peris, quam nostrum ignorare arbitraris. So that's horrible, you know. And also,
by the way, French has the accent, the stress, only at last syllable, and Latin has never at last syllable.
Right. So that's really like the worst pronunciation ever. But you know, like English pronunciation is not much better, you know, and more tempting.
Non vis loqui lingua latina mecum.
Possum et habeo multus amicos qui ita loquuntur, citamen. Cumi dicunt ad mortem te Catilina, ducu iusus consulis jam pridem oportibat, in tecum veri pestem. I'm like, I don't like it. So, again, I lost my other quote. Sorry,
later on you will hear Latin with Finnish accent.
Yeah, that. So that was not great, and like I certainly like more or less preferred like the German version. No, arma virumque cano troia qui primus aboris Italiam fato profugus la vigna que venit Italia, and so on. And then then you have the Italians. So can you read it? Can you read this passage with your accent, please? He doesn't have that accent in Latin, but yeah, he's gonna try.
Ibant obscuri sola sub nocte per umbram, perque domos ditis vacuas et inanian regna, quale per incertam lunam sub luce maligna. Tibi plaget.
Molto un plaget.
Accentum Italicum.
You have like.
Hoc est accentum Neapolitanum. Accentum optimum omnium orbe terrarum.
So this sultry accent, the prosodic spezzatura is just, you cannot beat that. You cannot beat that. I cannot do it. Like they are the closest people to the original Romans, and there's something in Italian accent that Spanish one will not give you, right? So there was something missing, or there was something excessive about it, and I felt the same about modern Greek. Modern Greek readings of ancient Greek. I felt enraptured, but utterly skeptical about the possibility that the language could have just stayed that way for 2,000 years. And I'm not gonna get into a debate because I know, like, are there Greek people in the room? That's great. No. Okay, like if you read like Timenes agravli, kakelenche agasteresion, Ivmen psevde apolla leyen, etimis diamia, Ivmen defte telomen alithia yeriseste. Yeah, there's something. Yeah, it's beautiful, but for me it's not ancient Greek. And I know it's very offensive for Greek people when I say that, but yeah, sorry. Well, so then. Along came Jason. Oh, it sounds like a love story. It's a Latin story, not a love story. But so Jason, so not the hero of the Argonautica of what's his name already, Apollonius Rhodius, but an American exchange student who's also a polyglot, a very brilliant one, by the way. And I discovered that he was in this school where I'm studying now, and he was doing spoken Latin Virgilian table. So I decided to go. And he's a polyglot, so he speaks. Yeah.
Aves 4 minutos.
Bene, jam Paulum ad finem adunum. So I thought like he's amazing. There's someone who finally understands what language is about, be it supposedly dead or not. And now he created a classic startup, the Paideia Institute, to promote the study of spoken Latin and Greek, and I just with him in a couple of months I could write in Latin, speak Latin, translate French texts into Latin. It just really worked extremely well. So to put this very quickly in a couple of words, I don't think there's when talking about Latin or Greek, I don't think there's we can say it's a dead language. Because Latin actually never died a natural death. The same can be said about Greek or Sanskrit in two senses. The first one is that Latin still lives in French and Spanish and Creole in all the dialects. Rhaetian, Sicilian, Lombard, Portuguese, Romanian, Friulian, Romansh, you name it.
Actually, French, Spanish, Italian are all dialects of Latin, so be aware of it. This is our thesis.
Absolutely, and so that's why I think that you could really very easily learn the language. So I'm gonna just show them the map. Can you show them the map? Yeah, it's all Latin, right? So that's the extent of the Roman Empire in 117 AD. So that's where Latin was spoken, and it stopped being spoken here, like in the 7th or 8th century. But all of that is Latin, and it's still Latin in a way. It's not exactly classical Latin, but it is. And the other thing is that there's an uninterrupted tradition from the time of Cicero and even beyond that, up until down until our time, where Latin was taught from master to pupil, from father to son, and it never stopped being taught. So it has never actually stopped being a living language, although it's not a natural one anymore. There's a couple of people. I don't know if you have the okay, that we're gonna just drop that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Move. Well, yeah. You know, Sanskrit, Latin. Who cares? Move forward. Yeah. No. That's you. That has to die. I'm not fast enough. Yeah, no, I thought there was a picture of Montaigne somewhere. Montaigne. Oh, there you go. So Montaigne was, to my knowledge, the last person who spoke Latin as a native language. His dad got him a teacher who only spoke Latin with him, and all the servants in the house had to speak Latin to the kid. So his first language was actually Latin. And there might be people like that around, but I don't know of any.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah,
at the Settimana Latina, maybe I'll tell you later, but
yeah, sure.
in this, there is an event in Germany called Settimana Latina, about which actually Roberto, me and another Latinist from Sweden spoke about in a video that is on my YouTube channel, the first Polyglot gathering in 2014. And in this event, I met two sisters that grew up with a mother that is German, but that loves Latin and spoke to them also in Latin. And so they speak as a native language also Latin.
Oh.
Latin, French and German, because the father is French, if I remember correctly.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I'll, like after all this, we'll try to give you, if you have a little bit more time at the end, some more reasons why you can do it. But I think that the essential thing is, if you want to, Latin is connected to a culture, just like Greek or Arabic or Sanskrit, and it's a language that you don't really learn if you're not interested in that culture. So that creates a very strong emotional connection with the language, and I think that you only can get the real feel of the language if you use it and speak it. Not necessarily on everyday basis, but to learn, and it really changes the way you understand that dusty old tradition of reading Cicero and Seneca and Ovid. I know people who hate Latin just because they had 6 years of horrible classes they never liked and where they actually didn't learn anything. But I'll let Cesco tell you how and where you can learn Latin today as a spoken language, and then we'll talk a little bit more about why it's important.
And a couple of words about Sanskrit. Yeah, il Sanskrit. Il sanscrito è parlato ancora oggi in un villaggio in India, giusto?
Sì.
Sei più tu, forse dillo tu.
Ma non so dove esattamente.
Comunque in India per ragioni religiose è ancora parlato il sanscrito. E personalmente yo he conocido en Italia bueno, conocéis la religión hinduista, ¿no? Que se basa sobre los libros los Vedas. Y en Italia yo he conocido algunos grupos de esta religión y ellos hacen también cursos de sánscrito. Y conocí a gente que habla el sánscrito porque lo estudian por razones religiosas. Pero conocí a gente que lo habla.
Oui, et on calcule qu'il existe aujourd'hui 40 000 locuteurs de sanskrit dans le monde. Enfin, surtout en Inde, mais des gens qui parlent vraiment le sanskrit comme une langue vivante. Alors on ne peut pas comparer ce chiffre avec le latin parce que ça n'a pas la même importance, mais disons que comme cette tradition a été la même, c'est le même type de tradition, on a une tradition écrite très ancienne, littéraire, qui continue jusqu'à nos jours. C'est la même chose pour l'arabe classique, qui n'est pas vraiment une langue... Enfin, personne ne parle, disons, arabe standard comme langue maternelle. Personne ne parle latin comme langue maternelle, personne ne parle sanskrit, ou très peu de gens parlent sanskrit comme langue maternelle. Mais le même type de relation existe. Donc voilà, vous savez très bien que l'arabe classique est utilisé pour un certain nombre de choses, mais dans la rue, vous le savez très bien, si vous parlez à quelqu'un en arabe littéraire, ils vont se foutre de votre gueule. Enfin, s'ils sont pas gentils. Enfin, moi, ça n'a jamais été vraiment très positif.
Okay, so let's go to why speak Latin. First of all, I will show Okay, Academia Vivarium Novum. I went there this year in January for the first time. He's in Rome, and he's an academy where they teach ancient philosophy, ancient history, ancient literature, mainly Latin and ancient Greek, and of course the languages. And everything is in Latin and in ancient Greek. Everything means the whole life, because there are students from all over the world, and Latin, and in part also ancient Greek, is the lingua franca. So everyone speaks Latin, also at the restaurant, at the, eating or playing or whatever. And some of them also speak ancient Greek. And the lessons about ancient Greek, literature, for example, or language, are in ancient Greek.
Si hablan otro idioma durante los días en que están en la escuela, los expulsan. O sea, es una vida un poco extraña, pero
obviamente no tenemos el internet.
No hay internet.
En el mio está, però...
Bene, non funghi turmune su macchina questa odierna qua, non... O hai macchina pessima. Algo qui. Podes tu dire
bueno, primera Catherine Wilcox, no está. Sí. Sabes, ĉu vi scias kiel meti interreton ĉi tie?
No funkcias ĝi matene, sed nun
Ĉar estas la konekto. Per mia computilo mi povas konektiĝi.
Wow. Bueno, puedo continuar a contar, mientras tanto, contarles un poco de cosas sobre lo que estaba diciendo de la tradición. Digamos que yo pienso que la relación del latín con el latín con las lenguas romances es exactamente la misma que tiene el sánscrito con los prácritos y las otras lenguas indias, y la misma que existe entre el griego antiguo y el griego, bueno, un poco la misma que existe entre el griego antiguo y el griego moderno. Sí.
Just using this time to ask some questions.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think for me one of the defining characteristics of a living language is the continuous generation of new words. I know this is happening in Latin, and I've seen the Vatican publish like a weird list of new words for each now lingo, etc. Is this happening in Sanskrit or in ancient Greek?
Yeah, well, in ancient Greek it's a little bit more complicated. In Sanskrit there are, I don't have the titles of books exactly, but it's what's very different in the Sanskrit tradition and the Latin or Greek tradition is that students are actually encouraged to use Sanskrit as a living language in college. So if you want to learn Sanskrit, you might have an oral or a spoken Sanskrit lesson in your curriculum. Whereas Latin in universities is not accepted. In most universities, not accepted as a spoken language, and professors get very, like, classic scholars hate people who speak Latin. I don't know why exactly. Maybe you feel threatened. That's dumb, but yeah. And so yeah, there are words, there are new words that are invented all the time in those languages. In Greek, it's different because Greece has a very complicated linguistic history. So Greeks have already their problems with demotiki and kathareusa, so adding ancient Greek to the mix would be is very complicated. So, but there is like a website called Akon, so AKWN, because it's an omega, where a professor writes news, like the news in ancient Greek, and he mainly uses like words from modern Greek to translate modern concepts into ancient Greek, which works very well because it's the same language. It's not like Latin and Roman languages, as Roman languages come from the spoken variety of classical Latin, like the vulgar Latin, it's called that way, and not from the exact same form of the language, whereas but modern Greek comes from the Koine Greek. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. As someone who took Latin in secondary school, because I had to get a Latino, because Germany,
right.
and really loved it. I'm really excited right now because I didn't know and I'm very excited. But do you? One thing that I really loved when I was doing Latin is, and also I'm hearing that you're pronouncing your C like a k, and not a ch. Which in England they do that when they're singing Latin in choirs. It's really frustrating. Anyway, but one thing that I really liked was the Latin poetry when you're reading like an Ovid or something, and you have to learn how to read it out. It's really beautiful because they teach you the rhythm that you have to read it in. Is that a thing that happens?
Yeah, usually you learn that in countries like Spain or Italy or Germany or even England, because the language has a natural accent. You don't do it in France because French people are lazy, but you used to do it like 100 years ago, but the French got lazier and they didn't want to learn the accents. So, but basically, yeah, you have to learn how to do the scansion.
Okay.
So you still pronounce it, you know, like tu ne quasi rischire ne fas quem mi quem tibi finem lide derint leuconoi nec Babylonius tentaris numerus.
And do people like write poetry and stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a very good friend who got. There's actually a poetry prize from the Università Pontificia, I don't know which one exactly, that is granted, I think, every 2 years to contemporary Latin poets. And I have good friends, friends who write novels in Latin and poetry in Latin with the ancient meter. Yeah.
Thanks.
Or not.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Thinking about accents, so has anyone continuously spoken Latin, and how sure can you be that the accents you speak with are like what they are close to, and how much is it just, I don't know, like your best guess of how it would have been? Sure.
Maybe, I don't know, Cesco's a little busy, but you want to answer that question? Or?
Which question? Sorry.
I can, about how we can be certain that the pronunciation is the way it was.
Well, there are, yeah, we can talk about it at the end actually, but there are.
Just not losing time.
There are several different methods or sources. For example, we have some poems in which the poets talk about a certain pronunciation of a foreign people that pronounced an H that should not be pronounced. Or we have comparative philology.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So historical philology, you can compare and understand and go backwards and understand which was the initial root.
Yeah, so you can compare like French to Spanish to Italian to other dialects, and from that you can do calculations and find like what would be the most probable, most likely pronunciation of Latin. But oh yeah.
And we have also archaeological recordings.
Absolutely.
Yes, archaeological recordings. We have found tapes and videotapes. Yes.
You found spelling errors.
Yeah, that was the other point. There are a lot of spelling errors that tells how the language evolved, and you know how, for example, the name Claudius started being pronounced by you know, like working class people as Claudius very early on. Like at the time of Cicero, there was an infamous fellow called Claudius, who changed his name to Claudius to look more popular and to go from the plebeian, to stop working for the plebeian cause and to go to the working class people of the sorry, I mixed up the words. Yeah, to go with the plebeians. Yeah.
Quería preguntar, sobre todo como están diciendo, para utilizar el latín como una lengua hablada, ¿qué pasa con las palabras que no existen en latín, como televisión, radio, teléfono móvil? O sea, ¿quién decide cómo utilizar, o sea, cómo generar más palabras, o simplemente porque no creo que se pudiera hablar de internet, ¿no?
Si on peut parler d'internet, on dit interrete. C'est facile vraiment. Ce n'est pas vraiment très difficile de construire des mots latins, parce qu'on a, comme je le disais, 2000 ans de tradition qui font qu'on a déjà dû à plusieurs époques inventer des concepts pour des mots qui n'existaient pas avant. Par exemple, ça c'est un perspicillum, ça a été inventé au XIIe, XIIIe siècle. Un peu plus tard, mais enfin, le mot a été inventé assez tôt, mais il désigne les lunettes depuis, je pense, 500 ans. Et sinon, on utilise les racines de la même façon que nous, le mot télévision n'existait pas avant non plus en espagnol, en français, en anglais. On a pris les racines grecques et les racines latines et on les a mis ensemble. Il n'y a pas d'académie unique qui pourrait décider de tout ce qui concerne le latin et les néologismes latins. Pero existe, por ejemplo, el diccionario del Vaticano, que propone el Lexicon Recentioris Latinitatis, que propone palabras nuevas cada 2 o 3 años. Hay otros científicos o filólogos como David Morgan que escribieron también un libro entero con palabras modernas para usarlas en latín. Lo mismo pasa en griego, pero en griego se utilizan, si se quiere utilizar alguna palabra, se utiliza sobre todo palabras de griego moderno, que se hace retroceder en el tiempo para usarlas en griego antiguo. Pero realmente, bueno, el latín tiene una y por eso es que yo decía que no.
Pardon, is there anyone that knows Linux? Yes. Do you know how to show the? Okay, go on.
Entonces, digamos que no hay una academia que decide, pero hay propuestas todo el tiempo y como hay una tradición tan antigua. Hay muchas palabras en latín que se pueden reformar, cambiar, poner en diferentes sitios y por eso decía yo que no se puede hablar cualquier lengua muerta, pues se puede.
Sorry, someone that also speaks French and knows Linux.
Y entonces no todas las lenguas funcionan porque digamos que las tradiciones no son perdón. Si se quiere hablar, por ejemplo, inglés antiguo, Old English, u otra lengua de ese tipo, o alemán antiguo, los textos que están los textos que tenemos a nuestra disposición no son suficientemente claros y no hay suficiente vocabulario para cualquier tipo de cosas. No pasa lo mismo con el latín, con el griego, con el sánscrito, con el árabe clásico, que yo me pongo en exactamente la misma categoría, porque precisamente esas lenguas sí tienen esa tradición larga y se usaban para todos los contextos de la vida. Digamos, no se iba a comprar pan en latín en el siglo XV, pero la gente podía hablar y, por ejemplo, si un intelectual del siglo XV español iba a Ámsterdam a ver a un intelectual holandés, hablaban en latín y necesitaban palabras para esas cosas. Entonces existen manuales también desde la antigüedad misma para describir nuevos conceptos, para traducir palabras del griego al latín, del latín al griego, etc.
¿Qué lengua hoy en día que se habla, como el rumano, me parece? Para mí el rumano que es el más cercano al latín. ¿Qué te parece?
Bueno, yo diría que sí, porque tiene algunos conceptos fonéticos. Yo no hablo rumano, pero más o menos he estudiado. Tiene sonidos que están más cercanos, formas, le quedan algunos casos por ahí. Pero de todas maneras el vocabulario ha cambiado mucho y tiene muchas palabras eslávicas. Desde el punto de vista morfológico, o sea, de la conjugación como tal, a mí me parece que el español y el portugués están muy cerca del latín.
¿Más que italiano?
Más que el italiano. Pero desde el punto de vista morfológico...
No lo creo.
No, digamos, pero yo sé que no, pero...
El italiano un poco más.
Sí, pero yo quiero decir, desde la forma como aparece en algunos tiempos, sí, en otros no. Digamos, porque conservamos la forma en era, la forma en s, porque el presente se parece casi exactamente y el pasado también al latín, mientras que en italiano los cambios fonéticos hicieron que se alejara un poco más. Pero en la conjugación del pasado, del perfectum, el italiano conservó mucho más las formas de los participios y del perfecto. Bueno, no diré que el español es el más cercano, pero desde el punto de vista de una parte de la morfología me parece más cercano. Parece, ¿no?
Esa la querés, las 4 juntas,
sí.
Nazcamos en latín.
Cambio el francés.
Bueno.
Audio connected.
Is there audio?
Yes, there is audio.
There's a cable here.
It says notebook on the cable.
Bene, I'll go.
Please put it in.
Yeah, yeah, just there. Yeah. This is the video of Accademia Vivarium Novum in Rome.
They play a lot of music as well.
L'umanità è un'idea che va coltivata in tutti noi.
That's not Latin.
L'umanità data in cultura.
That was Latin.
Percepire, vivere con gli antichi quasi fossero attuali, vivi, moderni. Considerare che la bellezza non è soltanto ornamento.
Grandi autori sono quelli che sono in grado di riflettere non solo il loro tempo, ma di dar luce anche al nostro, portatori di messaggi che si rinnovano continuamente.
Okay, and so I think these are the key words to answer our question, does it make sense to speak that language? I will add a video interview that I did personally in the academia with an American student there.
Hi Eric.
Hi. So, you're from United States?
I am, yeah, I'm from the state of Arizona.
Excellent. So, I would like you to describe briefly what is the Accademia Vivarium Novum, where we are right now, and what happens, which are the languages that are spoken here, and how the whole academy works.
Right, so the Academia Vivarium Novum is a school which conducts itself entirely in classical Latin or classical Greek, which are the two languages obviously of antiquity. And the reason we do that here is because throughout the day we spend hours in school, in classes, doing basically the studies of the classical humanists. And what that entails is that we spend a lot of our time studying philosophy, history, music, and poetry for the purpose of basically answering those unanswerable questions from the human tradition, from the Western tradition especially, such as, you know, what is the good life and how do we attain that? And the reason we conduct our classes in Latin and Greek is because those are the languages which many of those texts were written in, and it was the language of the times by which we sort of get that tradition. And so the school conducts itself in Latin and Greek so as to teach, not only to teach young people these languages which time immemorial has deemed very important to know, but also for the purpose of actually becoming more human, to become in touch with that long-standing tradition, which in our modern languages we might have been slightly alienated from. And so it stems just from the belief that it's better to study those questions in the languages from which they've come down to us. And that's largely what we do here. We wake up early in the morning and we start right away. Learning Latin, learning Greek, and studying those questions.
So between you speak Latin and ancient Greek?
Yes.
And everything is in those languages actually?
Yeah, all the classes, all of the meals, everything is conducted in that way. In fact, it's sort of contrary to the rules here to speak any other such language.
Yeah, of course, the aim is to practice
always
these languages. Yeah.
And part of the idea for that
so
is...
we are actually, right now we are contradicting the rules.
Yes. Actually some of the most English I've spoken in a long while.
Okay, so I think here we can grasp a bit the concept that we really want to communicate. Then, of course, if you have to leave, I mean, I think that the time is over, but unfortunately we have some delay. So I still have probably 10 minutes. Yeah, okay. So I'll finish in 1 minute. So,
but if you want to talk to us later, yeah, you can ask us a lot of questions.
Some other events. So Settimana Latina, already talked about it. That Nunti Latini is a Finnish internet site that gives news in Latin, and
we're just going to listen to a short example. I want just to conclude from my part while we find the file. I think that for me the important thing is that through speaking an ancient language you establish a real connection with that culture. It's not only reading, using a dictionary, finding words and playing with etymology, but it's really a strong connection and an emotional connection you establish with a language that has a very long tradition. And I'm very
latini radiofonie finnike generalis quos vobis recitat Virpi Seppälä-Pekkanen. Calende Maie sive dies Valpurgis olim erat dies festus internationalis imprimis operariorum quod non sunt omnino deposite dies Valpurgis est festum vernale omnium quod epulis cantionibusque cum amicis et proximis celebratur. Jam vigilia diei festi homines ad convivia conveniunt in quibus vinum spumans adventui estatis propinatur et cibi delicati gustantur.
And so on, and they speak also about Obama, and yeah, there is a part of it. So there are just modern news in Latin, and okay, and so just to finish, Latin circles. You can find a list of Latin circles around the world in Barcelona, Berkeley, Bogota, Warsaw, Zagreb, also in Switzerland and Hong Kong. Even in Hong Kong, they have a Latin circle, and on the site of Vatican, you can, of course, the site is also in Latin. It is an official language of this state, and you can find also a lexicon of new words. So, for example, navis sideralis.
What is a navis sideralis? Yeah, spaceship.
Yes, spaceship. Or taberna nocturna. Yes. Publicus currus electricus. Tram. Yes. Computer is computatrum. Email is epistula electronica. Drink is potio alcoholica. And hot pens are bracae feminae brevissimae. Okay, and a mountain bike is Birota Montana. Last thing, there is also a number of FIFA Weekly in Latin, because Sepp Blatter went to the Pope and offered to him this number, completely translated in Latin. You can find it online. And movies in Latin, you can find a couple of movies. Imperator, this is a Polish movie, and Sebastian, also on YouTube. Vobis gratias. Gratias. If you have questions, you can reach us separately, because now we have to...
Yeah.